Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder as I head out for a walk and deliver an episode to you while I stroll around. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good afternoon, listeners. It is a lovely day here in suburban Chicago, actually bordering on muggy. Not quite. I'm comfortable in my jeans and t-shirt, but there's a little bit of humidity in the air. Enough anyway. I am taking a walk, heading up to pick up my glasses. The optometrist's office called and said that they are ready to pick up, so I am soon to become a person who wears glasses. Shocking. I thought while I was on the way I would record an episode and talk with you about games. Thanks to those of you who came over to the Pick Up and Deliver Guild, number 3269, over on Board Game Geek, and answered the questions that I was asking about episodes. The resounding response has been, yes, please keep naming episodes the way that I have been doing. For those of you who just download it and don't even look at the episodes, when I do a shooting from the hip episode or like a duel or one of the other episodes where I am really focused on a particular couple games, I will put the name of that game in the title of the episode, which I have been told by a couple different listeners is very helpful. So I'm going to continue doing that. For the episodes that aren't focused on particular games, I will continue naming them with thematically or topically appropriate names. Like today, it's going to be classic games I still enjoy playing, which brings me to the question. The other thing I asked for in the forums was, and in the last episode, was if anybody had any questions they would like me to answer. I called them FAQs, which is funny because I don't get that many questions, so they aren't frequent, but whatever. And I did get a couple of responses. Chris Graves and Gabriel Edge popped in and asked questions. So Gabriel, this is yours, and Chris, I'll answer yours in the next episode. Gabriel asked what classic games I still enjoy playing, thinking about games that I grew up playing. So I thought I would answer this in a couple ways. One, the games I remember really enjoying from my childhood, and then what games I still enjoy now or still enjoy playing. Well, when I was young, I had the pretty standard set of commercial mass market board games in our house. We had Life. I actually have a 1950s or 1960s set of Life where like the doctor gets $10,000 a year. It's all old timey and funny. That was the set that we had. Also Clue was a very old set of Clue from the 70s, I think, that looked really weird. We had Monopoly, of course. And then one year when I was maybe 10, my aunt and uncle their neighborhood had a collective garage sale where the whole neighborhood, everybody agreed on the same 2 days they would have a garage sale. And so the entire neighborhood was for sale. And I remember something particular from that, which was that I maybe was 8. I was young enough that I didn't really have any money of my own. My mom gave me $5 to spend at the garage sales, which felt like a lot of money at the time. And what I found is that people were selling board games for like a quarter. I think I bought 10 or 15 board games that I'd never heard of, these weird games. So that's why our board game closet when I was young had a game called Anti-Monopoly, which I don't really remember what it was. I remember it was sort of like Monopoly, but not quite. I had Password. I had this great game called Dungeon Dice, which I distinctly remember as being very good. I haven't pursued it as an adult for fear that it would turn out to not have been very good. And then I remember getting a board game somehow related to Return of the Jedi and Sarlacc's Pit. Boy, I wish I still had that because it had like a 3D Jabba the Hutt pleasure barge over the Sarlacc pit, and then you had the little pieces and they get knocked off the barge into the pit. It was really cool, and I am sad that that is no longer in my collection. But I do remember enjoying Monopoly and enjoying Risk and Life and all of the sort of classic games. My father played games a lot, so he and I played chess a lot when I was young, and Mastermind and Scrabble occasionally. We weren't really a card-playing family, so I didn't really pick up cards, games like Spades and Euchre and 500 until I was in high school when I started playing those games with my friends. You can tell the parties I went to were ragers. So that's my kind of experience with classic games. And Stratego was another one in that group. So now I thought I would talk about games right now that I think of as classics that I still would happily play and why those have stayed in my list. The first one is Battleship. Battleship is a pretty simple game, right? You're just guessing where the other person has put their pieces. But within that, there's an interesting element of bluffing. It's a very nice conversational game, so it's really a nice way if you're spending a little bit of time with somebody and you want a game, but you also want to chit-chat. Battleship is great. It's pretty easy to play. Obviously, it's very light, but there's a little bit of strategy and a little bit of fun. So Battleship is a game I don't mind playing. Mastermind is a game I really enjoy. This is a classic deduction game in which you one person is the code maker, and they put out a spread of 4 colorful pegs and behind a little screen, and the other player has to guess the 4 pegs. And the way that you do that is by putting out 4 pegs of your own, and then the clue giver gives you 4 clues, and the clue giver can give you up to 4 clues, and each clue says either the peg is the right color and in the right place, the right color in the wrong place, or if you leave the space blank, it's a way of saying one of the pegs is neither right color nor right place. And that's it. You get 4 answers: a blank, a right but wrong, or a right and right, but you don't know which one it applies to. So there's some deductive reasoning to go there, and it's really fun. It's a nice conversation piece. It's a little quieter because you really do have to puzzle things out after you've taken a few guesses, but it's an excellent example of the kind of game that has turned into something like Cryptid or The Search for Planet 9, one of these, or Search for Planet X, one of these bigger games. The next board game that I would say is one that I still enjoy and actually have in my collection. Mastermind and Battleship are both on our game shelves here and get played occasionally. The next one I would say is Scotland Yard. Scotland Yard is a great little one versus many hidden movement game with an excellent set of clue. It's an excellent clue system. It's all about tightening the net. There's none of the other sort of complicated nonsense that you get in Spectre Ops or Fury of Dracula. Don't get me wrong, I like both of those games. I particularly like Fury of Dracula, but that takes like 2.5, 3 hours to play. It's got lots of complicated rules and blah, 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 blah. Scotland Yard it's really tight. It's very precise, and I think it fits its theme really well. I also really like the bits that the game comes with. It's nicely made. The copy I have, I got at Goodwill for $2, so that doesn't hurt. It's an excellent little one. That's Scotland Yard. In terms of card games, I don't really have much opportunity to play card games, at least the traditional kind, very often right now. But I would say the two that I sort of enjoy most are, I don't know what you'd call a standard trick-taking game, like something in the neighborhood of Euchre or 500 or Bridge. Those are all basically the same game with just more cards and more complicated betting. I haven't played Bridge very much, but I certainly do enjoy it when I get a chance. My wife isn't really all that keen on trick-taking games, and certainly isn't one to say like, let's play the same game all night, trick-taking. So I doubt that Bridge will ever become a solid part of my day-to-day experience, but I do like the ebb and flow of a trick-taking game, trying to figure out when is the right time to play, kind of figuring the odds of when you should lead and what you should slough. So I really like a good trick-taking game like Bridge or 500 or Euchre. The card game that I have played quite a bit with my wife that we do enjoy is Cribbage. I like the back and forth of trying to find the points that you have and playing out the points in the order to score a couple points at a time, and then the math of trying to recognize the matches in your hands. Now, we don't play super competitively, so generally we don't. There are people who will like steal pairs and stuff from other people. Like if you don't spot something in your hand, someone else can steal it. We don't generally play that way, but we do have a lot of fun with Cribbage. It also has that nice board element where you get to count your peg up, and that's fun. And I have a couple times in my life learned to play backgammon. Most recently, I reacquired the rules when a number of people on Board Game Arena started playing backgammon, and I got invited to a couple games of it. It's nice to return to that game and try it out again. I'm sort of slowly remembering the strategies. The nice thing about that is that you can make a mistake and the game won't let you play illegally. So it's really easy to kind of reacquaint yourself with how that works. So yeah, backgammon is a nice little game as well. I do have a backgammon set. Again, Goodwill, $2. If you're somebody who wants to just pick up a few classic games, I recommend swinging by a Goodwill. You're always going to be able to find a copy of Clue. You can probably find a copy of Risk. If you ever want to play Scene It, they always have Scene It. it's a 1990s Friends copy or whatever. I do generally like that about Goodwill. There are two games that I would say I haven't played very much lately or even in recent memory, but I do enjoy them, and those are chess and Stratego. Now, chess is one of those games, kind of like playing Magic the Gathering, where it's a lifestyle game, right? People who play chess, they play mostly just chess. And playing chess is its own thing that you really put your focus on. And so chess isn't really a game that I enjoy playing casually all that much. But every now and again, playing a game of chess is fun. And I like the game. It's one I've played many times. Brings back lots of fun memories of my father. The other game I would say is Stratego. I like the ebb and flow of a game of Stratego. The initial phase where you're putting out your pieces and trying to decide what strategy to go. The bluffing of moving a piece forward even when you think it probably will lose in a face-off to try to intimidate your opponent or try to read them, trying to figure out where they've put their things, trying to imagine where they put the bombs and how to get around those. All of those are fun aspects of Stratego. There are a couple games that I have at times really enjoyed that have faded for me. I would say, a lot of the games where you roll and move and then something happens are less interesting to me. Obviously, Candyland is a good game to teach, 3-year-olds how to play a game. But in terms of playing a game as an adult, there's not a whole lot of fun there because there aren't very many choices. The same goes for the game of life. And frankly, for Monopoly. I think Monopoly is one of those games where two equally skilled opponents basically know what to do. And then it's just about, did the dice let you go to a place where you could do that? There is some give and take over the auction of the properties, but I haven't played that game in a way that I enjoyed it very much. If someone said to me, hey, let's play Monopoly, I'd say, hey, have you ever played Acquire? And I would get that out, because I think you get a lot of the same feeling, but Acquire is much more interesting as a game. Risk, like I said, faded for me as well. Again, having to rely so much on dice to resolve the combat isn't my favorite. And frankly, just the texture of the war game of Risk just isn't robust enough to really hold my interest. I suppose if someone asked me if I wanted to play Risk, I might suggest Small World instead, which I think, again, more interesting as a game. I do play Axis and Allies occasionally with my neighbor. That's a game that he's very good at and I'm not, so that's sort of an interesting challenge to try to figure out how to do well. There's enough going on in that game, and there's a high volume of dice rolling that you're able, the dice eventually randomize out, the dice sort of balance out statistically, so you don't really have to complain about winning or losing because of the dice. That's not, I guess it could happen on a crucial moment, but if you got to the point where the dice are deciding whether you win or lose on a single roll, well, you probably played poorly. So, that's, I would say those are the games I would call classic that reside in our collection and that I play regularly. If I were to offer a couple more that I think everybody should play, but I didn't encounter until I was a hobby gamer, I would say the top one there is Perudo, or Liar's Dice. This is a fantastic little bluffing game, which, I would say if you have Skull in your collection, that plays an equivalent role. It's this game where you have a very small window of information, and you have to decide, do I bluff or do I call? And that's kind of it. And you go until either you lose or someone wins. And it's a great little game. Perudo is a little more elaborate than Skull. Skull takes 5 to 10 minutes to play. Perudo is probably 20 minutes or half an hour if you have more than like 2 people. But either one is great, and I thoroughly recommend either of those as a potential. And particularly Perudo, or Liar's Dice, is definitely a classic. I would say another classic game that I've encountered more recently in the hobby, but another one I've encountered is Can't Stop. I would recommend this as a game to help you just help enjoy pushing your luck and doing your best to decide when to stop. It's an excellent little dice roller, 10 minutes to play, really fun. Well, thanks for joining me on this journey down the classic game avenue. I'd love to hear what classic games you enjoy. Head over to Board Game Geek Guild 3269 and join the conversation there. If you look for the thread talking about episode titles and FAQ, you'll find Gabriel's introduction of this question, which is a great place to follow up on the conversation about it. Thanks for joining me today. I hope your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.